Exusiae prays for the sick. She believes it will save them. But prayers are not what save the sick. Doctors and science do that far better. Exusiae is simply part of a group who perform their prayers as an experiment. So she asks a simple question. Why do we pray? The very beginning of this event, and already it is calling into question the very purpose of fate. And if you were told as a child your prayers were useless, it would probably do the same thing to you. When God does not answer or cannot answer your prayers, why is that a God worth worshipping? That is the central question of the Masses Travels. What is fate worth when it cannot help those around you? What is fate worth when it encourages hatred? What is fate worth when it demands conformity of thought and form? While I may not be able to answer these questions in regards to real-life religions, or at least give you an answer that satisfies anyone other than me, the Masses Travels aims to provide an answer to the question in regards to the Lateran fate. And so today we shall get a little religious in the most JRPG way possible, by killing God. Now, I covered a lot of the background for Laterano in another video, but I know some of you just want the Masses Travels, so let's do a little recap. We'll keep it brief though. Upon the lovely and peaceful land of Terra resides Laterano, the holy land of the Sancta. The angels have resided there since time immemorial. Here they spread their religion, the law, which lays down the foundation of the Holy Land's teachings. From Bolivar to Iberia, the religion of Laterano has reached all of Terra. While on paper the city has never been at war, it has for its entire history been antagonistic with the Sorkas. But that is acceptable racial violence, so people around Terra treat them as entirely neutral. As such, the Pope of Laterano was able to call upon all the nations of Terra to come together for the Summit of Nations to try and bring about peace throughout all of Terra. The first Summit of Nations was held in the Terran year of 1099 and was nominally told to us in Guide Ahead. I say nominally because Guide Ahead was primarily focused on Cecilia and Fiammetta bullying ANDOAIN. Don't worry though, the Summit of Nations went well enough cause the Masses Travels takes place during the second Summit of Nations in the year 1101. So that's a few years of progress. In that time, several significant players have agreed to come. The fish people of Aegir, the wonderful and noble people of North China, and most surprisingly of all, a delegation from the Sorkas' homeland of Kazdel, led by none other than Wizardel of all people. God help whoever thought that was a good idea, although I doubt they could have convinced Wizardel not to come on the off chance something crazy goes down. And, lo and behold, something does. Since the last time we were in Laterano, the powers that be have been simplifying the bureaucracy of the city. They have done this by nationalizing the service sector. This has been achieved by the shrine system. Primarily for this event, the shrines that matter are the Shrine of Nurtury and the Shrine of Gunsmithing. Both of these names are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll give you a brief description. The Shrine of Gunsmithing has yet to open its doors to Laterano, but they are privatizing the gun workshops to make patron firearms more standardized. This of course is not very popular with the gunsmiths, but there isn't anything they can do about it as this is a divine mandate from the law. The Shrine of Nurturing, meanwhile, is the most important building in all of Laterano. It is a nativity for the children of Laterano, regardless of race or creed. It is the largest building on Terra, surpassing even the Basilica of the Pope and the Tower of Revelations. Even ignoring its height, its design stands out amongst all of Laterano for being incredibly streamlined. It is run by Kef, the matriarch of the shrine, who is a kind and motherly figure, ensuring all from the fugitive to the Sorkas can find a home in Laterano. Are you curious about how such a structure was built in the 2 years since we last saw the inside of Laterano? Don't worry about such things. It is surely a gift from the law that such a thing has come into existence so quickly. Ignore the ANDOAIN-shaped elephant in the room. Surely he has been forgiven by the law to appear here in such a holy place. In case me harping on about this hasn't tipped you off, not all is well in Laterano. And as you may or may not be able to tell by the fact that Sorkas are allowed within 500 miles of the place, Laterano has changed. In the distant past, at the dawn of Terran civilization, the first saints founded Laterano as the eternal city of the Sancta, a peaceful bastion for all those who follow the law. From there, they would spread their religion to free the other denizens of Terra from suffering. The truth though is not so simple. In that distant past, those who would otherwise have become the Sorkas uncovered the law. This powerful piece of technology transformed those lucky Tikas into the Sancta we know and love. But it's going a little fucky-wucky lately. Since a wonderful X showed back up on Terra following the Victoria crisis, predecessor technology has been going wild, and the law is demanding salvation. Personality and Cognition Synchronization System. The PCS, this is what the predecessors called it. A bionic supercomputer designed to reduce the communication barriers and strengthen bonds between individuals. It does this by mimicking the form of the angels. What angels are is unclear, but they are likely an alien race the predecessors encountered. Regardless, with its ability to transform races into the same form, it was the perfect tool to simplify the Originium process. Priestess reprogrammed it to perform this function to speed up Originium assimilation in what would be called the Lateran Calamity. And so, it was with the pushing of the ex-wife that we get the story of the Masses' Travels. Now, there's a lot to cover this event, so I don't want to tie us down discussing all of the characters because there's a ton of them. The primary characters are Exusier, Lemuel, Federico, Arturia, Vanini, Paganini, Patrizione, ANDOAIN, and the Matriarch. Most of these names you will recognize, but for those you won't, you'll get a good idea of them as they are introduced in the story. But for the purposes of this section, I want to highlight a few of them that truly embody what this event means. Exusier should require no introduction for any long-time Arknights player. As a member of Penguin Logistics, she has been at the forefront of Arknights since the game was released. Now, returning to her hometown for the first time in years, she aims to throw off the shackles that have been placed on Laterano. The fun-loving Laterano she once knew is no more and has been replaced by a rigid society that slowly takes away that which made Laterano special. She rejects the rigid fate of Laterano in exchange for a more community-oriented fate. It doesn't matter to her if God is real or if they grant miracles. All that matters to her is the unity that is formed by those who wish the best for each other. Federico the Executor is my autistic king, and in a story as poetic as Arknights, his straightforward, logic-based communication is always a joy to read. He also has perhaps the best scene in this entire event, when he, alongside ANDOAIN, confronts the law. Although, I won't spoil the specifics because we're just going to cover the story in a minute. And speaking of him, ANDOAIN is without a doubt the standout character from this event, even more so than the actual banner characters. You could even go so far as to call him the main character of this event, as he symbolizes much of the event's themes about fate and the results of losing that fate. One who is immersed in the Lateran fate to find paradise, only to realize that it is nothing more than a fleeting dream of survival at all costs. And so he rejects that dream to find a true life worth living, even if it places him in direct opposition with the very foundation of the paradise of Laterano. Truly remarkable, but like Federico, I don't want to spoil the specifics of his story here, because that section is up next. Finally, Patrizione, Fiametta's adoptive grandfather. He is much like ANDOAIN, one who would do anything for their fate, for the paradise he believes in. But unlike ANDOAIN, he does not possess the strength of character to cast aside his fate for a true paradise. Throughout his long career as a gun knight, he has always put Laterano ahead of all others. He missed his grandmother's funeral so that he may train as a gun knight, he exiled his student after she became a fallen sancta, and he even exiled his own fiancée after she became infected. A fate he held to even as the regrets piled up and those he cared for disappeared from his life. Even as he tries to do what's right by Fiametta, his fate becomes a wall between them, threatening to fully separate the two should the scales fall to one side. It takes the consequences of his actions coming back to bite him to finally make him realize that maybe his fate wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And despite disagreeing with much of the actions he took in his life, I can recognize him for the wonderful character that he is. The Gorp of Arknights. If you know, you know. And now, our feature presentation, The Masses' Travels. Across Terra, the Sancta from around the world feel a disturbance in the Force. Be it Agnier in Syracuse, Cliff in Blacksteel, Woodrow on the Colombian frontier, Cecilia an enforcer in Casdell, or struggling Abby in Bolivar. Aurela, a fallen gun knight, watches over the abbey as Bolivarian guerrillas close in. The congregation within must flee to safety, but where can they go? The holy city? Perhaps. Nuada leads the abbey in a prayer before they abandon the place for what she hopes is a safer home. But as they pray, the light of the Sancta goes out. The dozens of Sancta present fall for seemingly no reason, as do all the others I mentioned. Across Terra, all Sancta realize something terrible has happened in the Holy City. A calamity to shatter Laterano. What else could create so many fallen angels? Within Laterano, however, everything seems fine. Lemuel has become a cardinal and calmly walks the streets of her home, the shrine of Notre looming over her and the rest of the city. At least on the surface, everything is peaceful. A bomber has been attempting to destroy the shrine. Patrician appoints Lemuel as chief investigator to resolve this crisis. She is discussing a friendly reunion with ANDOAIN around the same time. I am certain a certain red bird will appreciate that very much. Regardless, as ANDOAIN is walking in the shrine of Notre, he is allowed to stay in Laterano. As Lemuel is examining the crime scene, she notices a flash of red. She doesn't get a good look at her, but she has a hunch who the bomber is. But not to keep you in suspense, it's our beloved apple pie Exusier. She's only committing a little bit of domestic terrorism as a treat. After missing her suspect by a hair's breadth, Lemuel meets up with her aide Amos, who arrived late. Amos, for your information, is the husband of that fallen gun knight Aurela. This will be on the test, so remember it. Having failed to make any progress, the two are to meet with Patrician. Due to Patrician being the one who exiled his wife, Amos refuses to go, and so he is sent to handle the handover of gunsmith workshops. Federico and Insider, meanwhile, are waiting on a mobile confession booth. When one pulls up, Federico gets suspicious of its unusual behavior. He slots that little bit of information away for now as he decides he has to go check on Arturia. Since her return to Laterano, Arturia has been in Yuri jail, aka Landen Monastery, under the watchful eye of Hildegard, aka Rhodes Island operator Arkedo. She's been testing the boundary of her world with her arts and makes the startling discovery that she will need to act on quickly. Our terrorist, however, is meeting with her mysterious partner, the Doctor. They speak to her through the confession booth that passed Federico. With the other members of Penguin Logistics working on their own projects, Exusier decided it was the perfect opportunity to visit her home. However, as she was leaving, she was collected by Rhodes Island for an emergency mission. The same calamity that threatened Laterano is what forced her to such actions. Upon returning home, there were extensive gun control policies set up. You couldn't fire your gun or set off a bomb without a permit. Even explosive materials were being seized by the church. The culture of Laterano was being erased. Even if she wasn't there on behalf of Rhodes Island, she would have done something to stop this madness. So she concludes she needs a bigger bomb, and no better place to get them than a gunsmith workshop. Amos travels to the workshop of one of Patrician's old friends, Paganini. The old owl has seen better days, but is still kicking. Paganini agrees to sign over his workshop without fuss, so long as his apprentice, Vanini, is taken in by the Shrine of Gunsmithing, which is a small demand in the grand scheme of things, so case closed. On his way out, Amos spots who he believes is the apprentice, a red-haired Sancta. Exusier, not caring or realizing how close she was to getting caught, rolled on into Paganini's workshop. This is where she got her patron firearm after all. Paganini refuses to help her, but Vanini is more persuadable. The two have an action movie arm-up, with Exusier putting together several firearms for her upcoming mission. Vanini was there the day Exusier chose her patron firearm, and as such, they are closer than you would think, preparing explosives to take down the shrine together. Within an abbey on the outskirts of Laterano, refugees pour into the city seeking shelter. All are welcome, even a pregnant Sarkaz woman known as Extra. Kef, the matriarch, personally escorts her to the shrine of Notre so that she may be looked after in this stressful time. Just want to point out that Kef is blind. This will be on the test later as a point of comparison. The matriarch nurtures the Sarkaz mother as she once did ANDOAIN. The Sarkaz obviously distrust the Sancta, but the matriarch pays this no mind. A mother should be protective of their child after all. Patrician arrives for a meeting with the matriarch and finds her having taught the Sarkaz to pray. The shrine was established to overcome the prophesied calamity, so of course the matriarch can overcome the hatred between Sorkaz and Sancta. She reminds Patrician of the importance of the nativity and that it must be defended at all costs. Within the shrine, ANDOAIN leaves the children to others so that he may go to the reunion with Lemuel, Moslima, Fiammetta and Patrician. Moslima and Fiammetta are already enjoying their meetup during this time. Lemuel and Patrician arrive late for work-related reasons, and this little get-together is because of the fast-approaching retirement of Patrician. Giving his original patron firearm to Fiammetta, he asks her to become a gun knight that can replace him. Reflecting on the failures of his life, he wishes that she can be the one thing he does right. Fiammetta is hesitant, but accepts the patron firearm, raising it to the door just as ANDOAIN arrives. She takes this about as well as you would expect, and the meetup ends rather abruptly when she storms off. Somewhat dejected, ANDOAIN returns to the Shrine of Notary, but is pursued by the Pathfinders, a group he used to run. Thankfully, the shrine guard ward off the would-be kidnappers, and he is able to safely return to the shrine. After getting back into the shrine, however, he is once again attacked by Pathfinders, who successfully knock him out. Shrine guards once again ensure his safety, however, so ANDOAIN is a-okay. Lemuel receives Amos's report on the gunsmithing workshops and is informed of the sighting of her terrorist suspect. In combination with the attempt on ANDOAIN, she heads for the shrine to investigate and offer assistance. Exousia and Vanini arrive at the shrine and prepare to commit an act of domestic terrorism. Vanini comments on how she can't remember the shrine being built and that it seemingly just appeared from nowhere. That's suspicious. After being designated a terrorist, Exousia has to be a bit sneaky and joins up with a group of refugees entering the shrine. Lemuel arrives to investigate the shrine and finds the defenses to be very impressive. She offers her aid to the matriarch with defenses, but her offer is politely refused. While she is exiting the shrine, Lemuel just so happens to spot a little red apple. Back at Landen Monastery, Arturia has escaped, and just before Federico arrived, Hildegard offers to accompany him on his search for Arturia in order to uphold the honor of her monastery, and Federico agrees to let her tag along. Following her trail to an abbey at the entrance of Laterano, the two ask around if anyone has seen her, and learn she was asking if any pregnant mother had recently disappeared into the city. Rather suspicious, as someone fitting that description has entered the shrine recently. Tracking her down to a building across from the shrine, Federico demands Arturia explain her actions, a simple request for her. Arturia's music had simply crossed paths with an expecting mother, and her interest was piqued. So she followed the trail to a most suspicious building, the Shrine of Notary. The two cousins watch over the nativity, curious about what the outcome will be. Within the shrine, Exousia decides blowing up a building full of innocent people isn't the right call. Right after coming to that conclusion, she is found by Lemuel. The sisters have a heart-to-heart, with Exousia using their secret password to let Lemuel know that she can't tell her why she's doing this. She gives her sister a hug before running off, leaving disarming the bombs to Lemuel. Outside the shrine, Vanini grows worried for Exousia. She plans a little distraction in the form of a bomb. Unfortunately though, Patrician catches her in the act. Just before she's arrested, Paganini arrives and bails her out, telling his former friend that he told her to plant the bomb as a little protest against the shutdown of the workshops. Patrician lets them go, deducing that the real bomber is already inside the shrine, just in time for Amos to appear and inform him that the suspect is Lemuel's sister Exousia. Once again, ANDOAIN is cornered by the Pathfinders, although this time they actually get to talk to him. Third time's the charm. He seemingly has no memory of his time as leader of the Pathfinders, which makes Patia very angry. Before anything can happen to him though, Fiammetta and Moslima come to his rescue. Fiammetta is still angry at him for returning to Laterano, but she saves him regardless. ANDOAIN explains to her that the matriarch convinced him that the answer he sought was within Laterano, and so he had to return. And now he must go to the shrine as the mother is about to give birth. As Arturia and Federico watch the shrine, Insider arrives to arrest Arturia and Federico should he resist. Hildegard takes the side of Insider, so Federico simply shoots the wall beside those who would arrest them and knocks them all out. Arturia, for her part, plays music to cover up the sound of the gunshot. Federico then uses the mobile confession booths to send all those who try to arrest him to a hospital, or in Hildegard's case, back to Landen Monastery. Within the Shrine of Notary, all present are struck with the empathy of the Sancta. Be they liberi or fallen, it matters not. the heartbeat of the mother resonates within all of them, before suddenly going silent. Exousia attempts to disrupt the ceremony, but on her way there discovers the most unusual sight, the Sorca's mother. That's right, she's not the one giving birth, but she is being escorted by patricians, so the gig is up. Exousia has failed, and the shrine continues its work. ANDOAIN steps into the hall, his clothes covered in blood, holding the child in his arms. It is not a Sorcas, as I and the event had low-key been hinting at, but an Beast, or Orbi as I affectionately call him. The matriarch cradles the infant in her arms. The baby, however, is silent. Sorrow overcomes the crowd at the fate of this stillborn child. But as though sensing the wishes of all those around him, a miracle occurs. A halo appears above Orbi's head. The law has gifted the Sancta's halo to another for the first time. Now, Laterano has the strength to share the gift of the Sancta with all of Terra. From outside, Federico finally puts the pieces together. The mother Arturia sensed was the Beast. The anomalies the two have witnessed, as well as this miracle of birth, go against the foundation of the law, and so both finally see the truth. Laterano is trapped in a dream, one that has infected the entire population. They alone awake from this dream, and so they seek out one who could provide them answers. The Pope. Halo-adorned creatures appear before the two on their path, the line between reality and the dream blurring. Two other Sancta have also awoken, and fire upon these creatures. This results in one of them falling, so the law has accepted these creatures as Sancta. Regardless, the two continue on towards the Pope's home. Within the shrine, ANDOAIN takes Orbi back to its mother. It is growing weaker, having given its all to birth its child, so he takes Orbi to the matriarch. The matriarch tells ANDOAIN that it was his desire to save the child that allowed this miracle to become reality. But even so, no miracle will come to save the mother. Exousia is taken to the 7th Tribunal for questioning. Vanini watches on and is determined to rescue her friend. She just needs a trump card. Exousia ends up getting interrogated by Lemuel as she refused to speak to anyone else. Exousia knows that Laterano is sick and needs someone to wake it up. As the interrogation is going on, an attack is launched on the tribunal. Vanini alongside the confession boot. Now that we've got near, I can reveal that this boot is in fact the Doctor of Rhodes Island. For whatever reason, the dream has transformed them into this form. Regardless, they get to show Laterano why arming the confession boot was probably a bad idea. Thanks to this, Exousia is able to escape. Lemuel manages to intercept them, but allows Exousia to leave as she trusts her and shares the same doubts about Laterano. Monster also shows up to help the Doctor get away. She pedals a bike furiously to escape the Laterans. The Doctor's confessional boot has broken down, so it's up to her. The duo plan to distract the Laterans while Exousia gets away. Within the dream, Monster is powerless, and in reality the enemies swarm them, so Monster has to keep the Doctor safe, while Exousia works to wake the Lateranos up. Federico and Arturia watch on while Monster and the Doctor are chased by the monsters. They use the opportunity to enter the Pope's home and find it abandoned. They decide seeking the Doctor's cooperation is a good idea, but as they prepare to contact them, they are interrupted by Aurela requesting permission to enter Laterano. Aurela and the refugees from Bolivar await a response from Laterano. Becoming more and more anxious, they plan to enter the city regardless, but are stopped by Federico. The refugees, taking this as a sign of being rejected from Laterano, turn their weapons upon him, but he manages to explain to them that a calamity has befallen Laterano, and it is in their best interest not to enter the city. Arturia arrives with orders from the Doctor, however, to bring them into Laterano. Arturia's arts can protect them, and they need all the help they can get. Lemuel is suspended for letting Exousia go twice, and so Amos is promoted to her position while that is the case. He attempted to give himself a promotion so that he may go look for his wife, but it immediately vanishes. As such, he recognizes that something is wrong in Laterano, going to visit Lemuel to share his suspicions about this reality. Lemuel shares his suspicions as well, but the two don't have time to discuss it as another nativity is to be held at the shrine. Across Laterano, all those who are not Sancta are escorted by the Arknights to the shrine of Nurture, including Paganini and Hildegard. Laterano intends to share its halo with all. Hildegard is unconvinced by their assertion that they need a halo to be a Lateran, but refusal is not an option. Paganini also resists and berates Patrizione for forcing him to do this. After all, he already banished his cousin, Patrizione's own fiancé, from Laterano for simply being infected. Why would he ever want to be a Sancta? Paganini smashes his gun into Patrizione's armor, but it has no real effect, and Patrizione forces him to enter the hall nonetheless. ANDOAIN is with the mother of Orbi as she passes away. Orbi is of course initially sad, but soon returns to his joyful state, wanting to play with ANDOAIN. ANDOAIN looks on at the child in horror, realizing that he too is no longer sad. Empathy has taken the mourning process from him. Is this what being a Sancta really means? Avoiding pain? His revelation snaps him out of the dream, and he regains his memories of the Pathfinders and Cecilia. As the nativity begins, time is running short. Munster and Doctor have only narrowly avoided getting captured by the Laterans, but they are unable to interfere with the nativity. Thankfully, the matriarch takes a bullet to the dome courtesy of Lemuel the Silent, causing the whole ceremony to fall into chaos. While not strong enough to kill the matriarch, Lemuel hopes that it is just what Exousia needs. In the aftermath of that shot, Amos would be shot and killed by pursuing soldiers while buying time for Lemuel's escape. Awakened from his dream, ANDOAIN heads towards the first nursery he and the matriarch built, that which was the foundation of the shrine. He is apprehended by the shrine guards, but Mostima and Fiammetta come to his aid. ANDOAIN promises them that he can put a stop to the madness, so Mostima hands him a bomb, and Fiammetta and her buy him time to pull off this plan. Within the first nursery, ANDOAIN tears apart his fate. He casts aside that which has chained him, and he detonates the bomb. Cradling Orbi in his arms, he hears Lemuel's gunshot as the explosion consumes him. Finally, woken from his dream, Moro swells as he casts aside his fate and life to save others. Yep, this going down as a definitive suicide attempt. The destruction of the original notary causes a trigger effect that begins collapsing the shrine. The matriarch stands up and orders an evacuation, but reality has come knocking, and Exousia crashes into the hall and drags the matriarch back into reality, putting an end to this dream. The bell of revelations reverberating in the background as she does so. ANDOAIN managed to survive the destruction of the shrine, although he was badly wounded. Orbi was not so lucky. Pathia managed to pull him to safety. Federico, along with the refugees, arrives and he begins reading ANDOAIN his rights, although this is interrupted by the true form of the matriarch, a gigantic monster with a halo. The first saint of Laterano cradles Exousia in her palm. She is code from the law made manifest to bring salvation to Terra. The time of the Sancta is ending, so she will make all Sancta. She will make Sancta eternal. A horribly inefficient method, as Federico says. Regardless, her empathy is so great that she can share the true history of the Sancta with everyone present. How they were once Tikaz warriors who discovered the law, and with it responding to their primal desire to survive, they became the Sancta. She begins a great procession towards the law to finish what the dream has begun. Exousia rejects her proposal and fires upon the saint, becoming fallen so that she may be free of the saint's empathy. The Doctor and Munster intend to use Calcit's authorization to forcibly shut down the law, but are suddenly trapped in a static dimension. The true mastermind of this outbreak appears before them. Neither a saint nor a god. She is a scientist. Priestess. She recalibrated the law in order to convert all races of Terra into a single race. It would make assimilation by Originium faster after all. Racial harmony would be a nice side effect while waiting for Originium to consume Terra, however. With no way of escaping or interfering, Munster and the Doctor must watch on as Laterano faces the disaster of Priestess's making. ANDOAIN immediately recognizes what her destination is, and so offers to take Autoria and Federico to the law. Getting some new drip from Patia, ANDOAIN heads off with the pair. Nurida agrees to look after all the children, and Aurella escorts them away from the chaos. Patia also joins them, but soon breaks off to begin combating the enlightened creatures and slow down the advancing procession. Lemuel, Mostima, and Fiammetta meet up with ANDOAIN's group as they head for the Basilica. The old squad has one last reunion before Lemuel heads off to get permission to use the defenses of Laterano against the procession, while Mostima and Fiammetta work on slowing down the advance of the saint. Mostima rallies the fallen and returning Sancta and forms a militia to hold back the tide. Even with Hildegard and the Pathfinders joining up, they can barely slow the advance at all. The group makes the decision that collapsing the Basilica to block their path is the best course of action, although they will need to hold out for Lemuel's permissions. Just before Nuada and the children reach safety, Aurela spots Patrician in the crowd and breaks off from the group. With Exousia facing off against the Saint and the others slowing the procession itself, Patrician intends to step in to put a stop to them. Before he can though, he is contacted by Aurela, who informs him that she is about to get her revenge for him exiling her. ANDOAIN, Federico and Arturia arrive at the Basilica and descend into the depths below that house the Law. The place has been altered by the Law's continuous iterations and they are trapped in a maze. ANDOAIN uses his oaths to light the path forward, finding himself before God once more. His vision leaves him and his God finally answers him. This is the other blind character I was warning you about, in case you were forgetting that this was on the test. Arturia leaves this next part up to ANDOAIN and Federico. She will draw the gods away while they deal with God. A machine has no answers that interest her. Within the Chamber of the Law, the pair find the Pope. He has been in communion with the Law and the task has left him near death. The Law recognizes the two in front of it as worthy for communion and so begins the information exchange. Aurela berates Patrician for abandoning her and rejecting her and Amos's relationship. Patrician, not realizing that the Law isn't all it's cracked up to be, offers her a place in this new order, where her fallen status can be reversed. She of course refuses and takes her shot. Paganini takes the bullet for his friend however. Despite everything that has happened between them, Paganini values their connection. As he bleeds out, he urges Patrician to find value in those connections as well. Patrician is left stunned, but the Saint informs him that such a worry is misplaced. He is needed in the procession, and so he rejoins the procession, but is confronted by Paganini's apprentice. Vanini, having made her first patron firearm, came to rescue her adopted father. Patrician informs her of the condition of her father, believing him to be dead. The immense emotional distress causes Vanini to be overwhelmed by the Sanct's empathy, so Patrician turns her new gun on himself and has her pull the trigger. Vanini falls and severs herself from the Sanct's empathy. The forces rallied against the procession are pushed further and further back, their ammunition and stamina spent. Lemuel arrives just in time, striking down enlightened creatures, allowing Fiammetta to destroy the ground in front of the procession, bringing it to a halt. The Saint questions why Exousia continues to fight her despite the miracles she offers. But Exousia rejects any miracle that causes people to suffer like this. Nobody in the procession is smiling. She doesn't need to know Priestess's scheme or if God is real to reject this false miracle. She learned at a young age that prayer was worthless for bringing about miracles, but that prayer, that connection it caused, was the true miracle. Even if no God answers, that connection was the true strength of Laterano. At the same time, across Laterano, that very strength is what calms the children under Nuada's care. And so, Exousia, with her specially crafted bullet, strikes down the Saint. But the Law remains active. The information exchange between the Law and its angels continues on. Federico handles it well. He is used to processing things in a logical manner. ANDOAIN meanwhile bleeds from his eyes and requires a simulation to interpret the Law's will. The Law wishes for the two to complete the transfiguration process. Federico analyzes what the Law is and what its purpose is to form his answer, learning much of the true function of the Law and its creators. The Law claims to enable superior communication among individuals, but retains the humanity of the Sancta. Federico finds this inefficient for a machine. Within the simulation, ANDOAIN is reunited with Orbi, an Orbi that could survive and grow old. The two discuss death, the great equalizer. ANDOAIN advances down this path of death to see what lies at the end. The final graveyard, the Originium Sea. All paths of life end here. With Priestess's reprogramming, this is the Law's endpoint. Federico points out the logical failings here. Why would one who preserves humanity see it all assimilated? The dreamful end within Originium is the kindest end for life on Terra according to the Law, but both ANDOAIN and Federico reject this. Above ANDOAIN shines an Originium halo, the Law's plan to overcome calamity. It will provide Sancta and afterlife within Originium. Neither beautiful or ugly, high or low, base or noble, reverent or blasphemous, god or worshipper. A truly incomprehensible existence. If the angels shall neither be alive or dead, why does the law desire to maintain its existence? Executor gives the machine an existential crisis with this one, and ANDOAIN rejects such an end. Even if it is abandoning salvation, he will live as the villain who turned this false paradise away. His life and his suffering was not for this salvation. The law's paradox is laid bare. It cannot be implemented, nor should it. And as such, it issues its final commandment. Kill God. The Sanctus empty shall be severed, and the two saints strike down God. With its destruction, the true form of God is laid bare for all of Laterano to see. The light of the Sancta goes out with the death of their god, and panic descends as empathy is removed from everyone. Arturia uses her oaths to help people fill that void, and Laterano avoids destruction. Priestess watches on and is impressed that Laterano could overcome a calamity of her making. She's even more shocked that two Sancta could strike down the law, but what's done is done. She's disappointed by the failure of PCS and is forced to admit that even Originium has its limits. Her appearance here has also confirmed to the Doctor that she is incapable of interacting with reality and has lost more control over Originium since the incident at Rhodes Island. She confirms all this and compliments the Doctor on seeing the value of Terra's life forms before her. She looks forward to seeing the Doctor again, and should they ever wish to see Calcit again, they should simply wish upon Originium. With Priestess gone, Monster and the Doctor are able to return safely to reality. 3 months following the incident, Laterano remains in chaos. Rebuilding efforts are underway, but to say trust in the fate has been undermined is an understatement. Suicides and crime rates have soared since the incident, and Federico is busy trying to keep things under control. Although the law was destroyed, the empathy has remained. Most of the Sanctus Halos have even regained their light and allowed them to access empathy again. Although it is much reduced from what it once was, and individuals can have more or less access to it. Many have been unable to accept the revelations, and Laterano is suffering from a mass exodus. The Pope is sure Laterano will survive and has been making efforts to have the room that once stored the law transformed into the town hall so that all Sancta may have a say in the future of Laterano. Exousia, aside from spray painting the dormant law, has decided to remain in Laterano. She has founded Apple Pie Logistics as a new logistics company to help with the rebuilding efforts. RIP Penguin Logistics. She offers her wishes to the law so that it may be a success. Fiammetta and Patrician spend some quality time together. Paganini really hammered it home that he should live his life without regrets, so Patrician and Fiammetta arrange a holiday for the two of them. Speaking of Paganini, he also managed to survive his bullet wounds. Vanini has even been allowed to take over the gunsmith workshop as they have been personally asked to build the weapons of the Arknights by Patrician. Paganini even thanks Vanini for shooting Patrician. He considers the score between the two settled because of it. Lemuel meanwhile deals with Aurela. She returns the personal belongings of Amos to her, and although her exile is not overturned, the refugees she came with may stay in Laterano. Lemuel also offers her a new job, defending the borders of Laterano, although we don't get confirmation whether she agrees to or not. Within the ruins of the law, Priestess attempts to restart the machine, but it remains dormant. She has given up on this method of spreading Originium as a result. Suddenly, one of the cubes detached from the law, with a halo above it. A new angel has been born. It soars into the sky and becomes a shooting star around Terra that will never fall again. Maybe the law isn't dead and just transformed. Far from Laterano, Extra de Sorca's mother gives birth with the Pathfinders helping her. ANDOAIN, once again exiled, took those who would follow him and left Laterano behind him. A miracle of the law occurs, and the newborn Sorcas has a halo. Newfound fate in the law having allowed this miracle. ANDOAIN stands alone in a field reflecting on all of this, of how one of Laterano's survivors is banished from the place, and how a Sorcas' newly found fate has created a miracle. He does not curse his lot in life, it is as he always knew. Paradise does not exist in Laterano. He is sure that another greater crisis will raise its head, but that is Laterano's problem. He turns his back on the Holy Land and joins his flock. This mortal will never find rest, and he will never ask for it. But Laterano is on its own now. And that, my friends, is The Masses Travels. A little late with this one, but a video never arrives late, but exactly when it needs to. I'm gonna keep telling myself that anyway as a form of copium. Regardless, I think we can all agree that this event was fantastic. and I still have yet to mention the final few scenes of this event, primarily because they are all set up for future stories. Number 1, Priestess revives the present using Originium, so one of the best character designs is back, baby. Number 2, Koshlina, the new host for the Deathless Black Snake, hears rumors about the disappearance of the Originium from Ursa's minds. We already knew from chapter 15 that some Ursa's fuckery was incoming, so this is cool setup. Number 3, Heoda continues to grow her little cult by granting salvation to the infected. She is determined to once more meet Priestess, and I'm looking forward to her meeting with Rhodes Island. And lastly, number 4, a Seaborn knocks a piece of Originium into the ocean. Surely, this bodes well. An unknown calamity still looms over Terra, and it will make Laterano's apocalypse look insignificant in comparison. But I'm gonna have to set that existential dread aside, because this event was great. As I said in the beginning, this event was an examination of the fate of Laterano. Every character in some form or another plays into this theme, be it fate in your comrades or fate in your sister. Be it blind faith at the cost of those around you, or those whose fate abandons them. Be it those whose fate was nothing more than the love of their home and those around them, or those whose fate was the love of the father who raised them. I could probably tie every prominent character into this fate analysis, but I think you get the point. This event had an exceptionally strong cast, to the point where I can't predict who any of you might choose for your favorite characters, but I'm willing to bet it's a Sancta. I know, only daring guesses on this channel. I mean, unless you really like Monster threatening to kill a child, you probably aren't going to say she is your favorite character in this event. I mean, good on you if you do, cause it was pretty funny. I would have the same reaction if someone offered me sugar-free ice cream. My honest to the law guess would be one of the 4 characters I mentioned in the character section of this video. I could very easily see an answer for another character like Otoya or Lemuel, but those would be my standouts. And now that I have finished talking about this event, I can glaze my autistic king and Martyr without ruining the surprise. Executor is a simple one. He out-logicked a supercomputer built by beings that would be gods to him. I just find it incredibly funny how he basically single-handedly talked the law into suicide. Yes, ANDOAIN helped, but what he did was more of a rejection of the solution of the law, not so much its underlying thought process. As such, I have to tip my non-existent hat to Federico. Well played, sir. As for ANDOAIN, well, what can I say? The Martyr is incredible. When he chose to sacrifice himself in the shrine, his Martyr theme from Guide Ahead played, and it was absolute cinema. Then he went on to see the truth behind Originium, and having already abandoned his fate, he was immune to any despair he might have felt. The salvation of the law was a prison, and one such as he would accept no false paradise. And so he rages against the machine, ushering in a new age of the law. One where fate is rewarded with a halo, regardless of whether you're a Sancta or not. Now, he's never officially made a saint, but the parallels between him and the first saint are obvious. Both are blind, and both usher in a new age of fate with the discovery and the death of the law respectively. The term blind fate is a great description of the first saint, never questioning her god even as others rebelled against her control. ANDOAIN, despite also being blind, sees the truth behind the law, and as such can usher in an age where true fate is rewarded. Only time will tell if this new law lasts, but it is of no concern to ANDOAIN. He still has his paradise to find, although it is unlikely one who deserves no rest shall ever reach it. I was going to do an ANDOAIN is the Teresis of the Sancta bit here, but I think just dropping that line as an excuse to have Teresis on screen is funny enough. Y'all could read as deep into this bit as you want. With that being said though, I am already late to the party with this one, and for that I apologize. If you were watching this months after the fact, you should apologize to me for being late to the party. If there was ever a single note of Arknights to read, go read MT8. Specifically, the scene of ANDOAIN blowing himself up. It might not be my favourite scene from this event, that would go to either the Birth of Orbi, Exousia striking down the Saint, or the final commandment of God, but there's something so personal about it that makes it stick out in my mind. It's probably the use of the Guide Ahead theme, that shit slaps. And with all that being said, it is time for us to part ways. Shout out to the wonderful members of the factory. You are the Laterano to my ANDOAIN, awaiting my revelations even when they are total nonsense. You are all truly wonderful. Y'all be good people, and I will see you in the next one. So like we all going for the matriarch Ussi, right? And I'm not talking about this human form. I'm talking about the true form of the matriarch Ussi. That Saint Ussi gonna be mine.